This expose is part of the new Media Assassins brand, born out of the third assassin hoax. Please check out our sample campaign against Sheriff Chad Bianco. PDF available for download below, with hyperlink to many of the pieces we've created to expose Chad Bianco. All right, guys, welcome to the latest episode of Blood Money. Today we have the one and only Pete Santilli with us. How are you doing, sir?
The one and only. I feel honored to receive such. Yeah, you're right. Why would anyone else want to be called Pete Santilli?
Well, for me, you're the one and only because you're one of the people that actually corrected this third assassin hoax narrative, which we're going to touch upon here with this incredible expose that you are seeing over here on the Blood Money podcast that Pete has been working on for a really long time. So, let's just dive right into it, Pete. I don't know where you want to start. Do you want to start with how we first met and how that's evolved and the investigations that have come about in this last, couple of years that you've been working on?
Yeah, I mean, and how we first met, I think, would be, taking away from your body of work. We've been operating in parallel regarding covering the Bundy Ranch story. So let's just back up a few seconds here. 2014, there was what they called the Bundy Ranch Standoff. And it wasn't a standoff at all. And I know this just because of how I got wrapped up into it. 2014, Clive and Bundy, after 20 years of fighting with the federal government, they wanted to get him off the land. And he was the 52nd last rancher standing. 2014, there was a protest that took place on April 12th. I got involved April 8th. I interviewed Clive and Bundy. The 9th I was out there. By the 12th, they had what they called in the media a standoff because Clive and Bundy owed $1 million. It was so far from the truth. And we learned that, and here we are, 2025. We learned our way through it as to what it was back in 2014. Now, 2016, another set of ranchers up in northwestern portion of the United States, the Hammond family, were basically assisted by the Bundy family. They wanted to go up there and help them out because they had pursued a rancher out there, Dwight Hammond, and his family was pursued for the same reasons, wanted to get him off the land out there in southeastern Oregon. That was 2016. Well, between 2014 and 2016, what was going on was an investigation by the FBI and the DOJ. 2016, when I went out to that protest to cover the Hammond family, because the Bundy family called me and said, would you like to cover this? We're going to go out there for a protest. I said, sure, I'd love to cover it. They said similar issues. And I departed Cincinnati, Ohio, where I had moved since 2014, traveled out to Oregon, and what ended up happening was a much different circumstance. It was a little bit more of a standoff. It was an ambush, but it was the culmination of a multiple year, we'll call it an investigation. 2014, the DOJ, the Department of Interior, the Bureau of Land Management basically had pre-planned in 2014, pre-planned a provocation with the Bundy family and their supporters in order to provoke an armed confrontation with the American people. We know this, it's documented.
Could I give a quick little background on this and correct me if I say anything wrong? So for the viewers out there, Clive and Bundy and the Bundy Ranch family has had a piece of land literally since, I believe, 10 years after the inception of Nevada, right? So they've been grazing this land, and the federal government all of a sudden gets clever. Sometime, I believe, in the late 80s, early 90s, they say, hey, guys, if you want to keep grazing this land, then you got to sign these contracts with the federal government, right? Every rancher that signs that contract ultimately goes bankrupt, which is pretty much every rancher in the region except for Clive and Bundy. Clive and Bundy refuses to sign this contract, which is basically a way of signing your land away, signing your cattle away. And what happens is, rather than the federal government, BLM, Bureau of Land Management, basically saying that, hey, why don't you come into court and fight your case of why you believe this land is yours? No, they send 200 federal armed officers to bully the Bundys off their land, killing their cattle, harassing family members, and then 2,000 militia members show up to basically protect the Bundys. And that's the so-called standoff. And eventually the government backs down because they realize this is going nowhere good, that this is literally going to blow up into violence, that the people are pissed that we're basically doing this sort of thing. But nonetheless, they continue the persecution of the Bundys. They basically throw them in jail, the Bundy dad, the Bundy brothers, other Bundy family members, for 2 years with no trial. And then eventually they let them go. And we'll get to the reasons why they let them go. But is that an accurate representation of what happened between 2014 and 2016?
Yeah, a couple more details. The operation began because Clive Bundy refused to leave. His water rights date all the way back to the 1850s. We're talking settling out there. His water rights were higher level water rights than the municipal water company. He had 11 water rights. Now, why water rights are important out there? Because, you know, they not only want the rancher off the land, they want the water rights and they want the mineral rights. That's what it was all about. And we're talking billions and tens of billions of dollars, trillions of dollars in, you know, potentially in Nevada in mineral rights. So 1850s, well, the Bureau of Land Management and Department of Interior in the state of Nevada, Nevada controls all the water rights. Well, they actually stole upwards of 7,000 water rights from people, ranchers, and property owners out there over a period of time. Now, Clive Bundy was told back in the 90s, you need to get your cattle off the land because of whatever reason. They kept making up excuses as to why he needed to take his cattle off the land. It's a 600,000 acre area out there in the desert where his cattle was bred specifically to walk 10 miles for forage. And he says, I can't take my cattle off the land when the tortoise is out there. I can't do that. They have to stay out there. They're bred specifically for this environment. So for 20 years, he was going back and forth. He wanted to, you know, he was paying his grazing fees. He was complying. He wanted to work with them. Then he started to realize what his rights were and why they were trying to run him off the land. So a lot of issues regarding water rights, mineral rights, land rights, usage, and the government's efforts to get human beings off the land so that they could extract the wealth right from underneath the feet of the American people in each respective state. Now, Clive Bundy in the 90s, 93, I think it started, he was going back and forth. They kept finding him and finding him and finding him. By 2014, they said he owed $1 million in grazing fees. It wasn't $1 million. The reason why he couldn't work with them, and they came to a standoff, you know, from a regulatory perspective, is we calculated the fines they were assessing Clive Bundy amounted to $631 million. He couldn't resolve anything with them because the fines were so exorbitant. So this thing got so huge, but they knew that, and this was documented, that well in advance, January of 2014, they started running through what we now know are people from the intelligence services. There is a person that worked for the CIA, and she was assigned to the Bureau of Land Management. They were running social media influence operations. They were sending pictures of MRAPs. They were saying the military is coming, and they were literally trying to provoke support for Clive Bundy. They could have gone to get the cattle and gotten Clive Bundy, and nobody would have ever known about it. It would have been in the dark of night. But they specifically wanted to lure in all of his supporters. That operation began January of 2014. By April...
So hang on. So they're trying to use social media, act like almost like these posts are coming out as if they're pro-Clive Bundy, but really what they're doing is they're trying to set the Bundy family up.
Yeah, they were actually wanting to provoke. Here's a federal judge said that, and this is in an order that allowed one of the cases, civil case going forward, that the entire thing was an operation specifically to provoke an armed confrontation with the American people, and that using Clive Bundy as that means. Kind of like, remember the Sagebrush Rebellion? They wanted to find out who the supporters were to just lure them out into the clearing, because they said that the reward would be far greater All right, now, I've also given you a copy of something called Operation PATCON, okay? I learned about this effort to demonize the Patriots, to surveil them, to basically anybody with we were MAGA before MAGA was MAGA, red hat, patriot, constitutionalist. Operation PATCON had come out of the Oklahoma City bombing. They wanted to demonize the American patriot and to get them off the streets, essentially. They don't want people waving flags and talking about the Constitution. So this was part of that effort. You go from Oklahoma City, right? You've got Ruby Ridge, Waco, and then Bundy Ranch was that next step for them. They wanted to use that type of an operation to lure out any patriots that would be in support of Clive and Bundy. There was multiple months leading up to that. So I wanted to make sure we emphasize that.
Sorry, they're trying to lure patriots to the Bundy Ranch? Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what they did. It was a social media influence operation led by somebody that we know that she was, if not, on the payroll of the Central Intelligence Agency. But she was deployed to the Bureau of Land Management in the Department of Interior.
Who is this person?
For right now, I'll give her name. She's in the public. Her name is Robin Kirkham. This is one of the most recent bombshell revelations that's come, as Robin Kirkham has admitted on the court record that she worked for the Central Intelligence Agency, and her testimony right now is being fleshed out as to her operation, or part of the operation, her involvement in that operation. Her name is Robin Kirkham.
So what are they trying to do? They're trying to lure everybody to the Bundy Ranch. What's going to happen next? What's their plan? Why were they doing that?
They wanted to provoke an armed confrontation with the American people, period. And what happened was...
But that happened, though. Like, 2,000 militia members showed up.
I'm talking about they wanted death. Wow. They wanted a massacre, and it didn't happen. Not one shot was fired, thanks to the intervention of, his name was Tom Roberts. He was the under sheriff, Joe Lombardo and Tom Roberts. But Joe Lombardo was a little bit more deeply involved in the whole operation. Anyway, we know that now. But Tom Roberts is the one that told the BLM, you back up, I'm in charge, and then eventually told them to get out of the state of Nevada.
Wow. I mean, that's actually really encouraging that there was actually a good undersheriff at that time, because all I've heard was that Sheriff Joe Lombardo was kind of in on it. I mean, is that accurate, that he was in on it with the federal government?
We now know that. Tom Roberts is an American hero. He was the undersheriff. There was Joe Lombardo, but Joe Lombardo was working with the Department of Homeland Security, also working with the military now. We know that the military was involved in this operation, and the Central Intelligence Agency and the FBI. But Joe Lombardo was working with them. We now know that. But Tom Roberts is the one that said, you don't need those long guns. Put them down. I'm going to take command post. And he eventually had them leave the state of Nevada and avoided a bloody massacre that they had pre-planned.
So what was I heard some things, I'll let you say it, but in terms of the massacre, how were they planning on massacring American citizens, and when was this massacre was supposed to happen?
It was to happen. Everything was an entrapment. The entire scenario leading up to the protest on the 12th. See, it was a protest. We had called the sheriff to come in and intervene. That was the protest on the 12th. Mm-hmm. Well, they wanted to use that opportunity to have a bunch of patriots come from all over the country with guns. And they said they were going to be supportive of the Second Amendment. And then things would change, okay? And they were going to provoke a kinetic gunfire and an absolute massacre, which included the killing of their own troops. And we've got a lot of whistleblowers, by the way, from the Bureau of Land Management. As a matter of fact, that's what broke the case, is the primary case manager, Larry Wooten is his name. He submitted hundreds of pages of documentation that actually disclosed everything that I'm relaying to you right now. He's the one that caused the entire case to fall apart. We had a federal agent whistleblower, Larry Wooten, do that.
Wow. You sent me a lot of receipts here. You sent me files and files of stuff. If you're going to reference anything in terms of receipts, please go right ahead.
You know what I do want to do, and you don't have it right in front of you, but I want to show you what they had done to their own agents. I mean, it was a military operation. You mentioned that they had a lot of agents there. There's an image there, Fallujah, it's called. I mean, these federal agents were dressed up like they were ready to go to Fallujah. That image that I'm sharing with you is exclusive. I don't think it's ever been made public before. So the Fallujah image shows the Bureau of Land Management agents dressed up, ready to go to combat. They were kept up for 48 hours, told that the militia was coming, and there was going to be an armed a firefight, essentially. So I want everybody to see that. Now these agents, now that they know that this thing was pre-planned, they've come forward. They know that their lives were put in jeopardy and they were almost sacrificed in this thing that was to take place on April 12th. But it was all for the purposes of, provoking Americans to pull the trigger first. And then they had 70 plus heavily armed Bureau of Land Management, National Park Service, federal agents ready to go. It was going to be one of the biggest massacres you've ever seen. It was all pre-planned by them.
So this is the image called Fallujah. Did I pull up the correct one?
That's it right there. That picture was taken the night before after they were sleep deprived for 48 hours from what we understand. And they were told that the militia was coming, that there was going to be an armed, everything was going to go kinetic.
So these guys you're saying were totally sleep deprived when they took that picture?
Absolutely. Yeah,
so they're doing that intentionally to piss these people off, so then they're on the short fuse not having slept? Or
yeah, everybody was on razor's edge. God intervened and the trigger wasn't pulled. Tom Roberts came in at the nick of time. The sheriff intervened and not one shot was fired, thank God. But they were not only fully prepared for it, they had set this thing up. Daniel P. Love knew what the operation was all about. He was behind it. He was willing to sacrifice all of his troops. He had 70 plus heavily armed federal agents. When they found out about the pre-planning of the operation, they're equally upset. Larry Wooten was the case manager. And as the trial started to unfold, he blew the whistle. And that's what caused, as we fast forward, that's what caused the entire trial to be dismissed, is because Larry Wooten blew the whistle and described almost everything in detail that I've told you up to this point.
Now, you had mentioned something about authorized drone strikes. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, and that's where Joe Lombardo, that information is going to come out as to his cooperation with the Department of Homeland Security, with even the military. The military, the Central Intelligence Agency, was also involved. We had found out, in fact, there is an audio recording that I put in the audio files for you. You can hear the voice. When I pick up the phone and I call Michelle Fiore at the time, who was Nevada State Assemblywoman, in late April of 2014, she had sent me a text that we had received information. His name is Joshua Merritt. He had contacts within the DOD that a drone strike was about to take place at Bundy Ranch.
Hello?
Please tell me somebody didn't steal your phone and send me that message. This is Pete Santilli.
Pete, no, someone did not steal my phone. Hold on 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
This is Pete Santilli. Okay, hang on. Hold on.
Pete?
Yeah, who's this?
Hi, is this Pete?
Yeah.
This is Jim White from Northwest Liberty News. I'm here with Stuart Rhodes. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm very sickened by a message I just received. And
us too. Believe me, we're scrambling here. We're into...
It's Steve. Is it Steve White? Is that correct?
James White.
James White,
from
I'm sorry.
From Northwest Liberty News. I'm embedded with Stuart here.
Okay.
I'm his media guy. And we just received the tip earlier. We vetted it. We had two guys interrogate the man that gave the tip for over an hour, and they came out of the interrogation saying that he's credible, he's legit, and we really need to be concerned. This is a source from inside the Department of Defense that gave us the tip, and as I said, we vetted it, and we believe it to be credible.
Wow. And you're saying within the next 48
hours, within the next, at night, they're going to have the attack at night, Hellfire missile, and the word is the Hellfire. The C-130 flew over our camp today.
Well, Stuart Rhodes, in fact, went to Michelle Fiore's house, knocked at her door. She didn't know who he was. She didn't understand who he was. She's a Nevada State Assemblywoman, but we had become pretty close, friends. And Michelle Fiore texted me. I called her and I said, please tell me that text was a joke. And you'll hear, if you can play that short little clip. Stuart Rhodes had knocked at her door. I said, yeah, let's find out what he has. That basically, contacting Michelle Fiore stopped the drone strike. That leaked information from the DOD to Stuart Rhodes came from Joshua Merritt. I've also provided a copy of his audio recording as well.
The reason I was trying to get to you, Josh, is this drone strike thing. There's 3 or 4 different stories going around, and my research, it seems to come back that you were involved fairly early on in this. Is that correct?
Roger, I'm the one who was given the initial intelligence that I then reported directly to Stuart Rhodes. I telephoned him at 1700 on Friday. I received the intelligence at 1630 on Friday from a gentleman that I work with. So, because he holds a very high clearance because of the fact that he is a nuclear physicist.
Well, I can understand and appreciate that both. Can you tell me, as best as you recall, what the exact message he gave you was?
Well, when he first called me, the first thing he asked me was, he told me, did I have any contacts who are out at the Bundy Ranch? And I was like, yeah, I can get that information out. And he said he had received a phone call from one of his contacts within DOD that Eric Holder had approved and passed over to the DOD a drone strike for the Bundy area that was supposed to happen. And I asked him, I said, well, what's the timetable? And he said 24 to 48 hours, either Friday night or Saturday night. And he continued on and stated that they had already been surveillancing the area, and that the order that had come down was that there was to be no witnesses and no videotape of it to leave the area, that everything was supposed to be scrubbed.
Describing what was to happen, we were all called a bunch of conspiracy theorists and conspiracy nuts. Well, Michelle Fiore ended up contacting the governor of the state of Nevada, Sandoval at the time, and stopped the drone strike. What we did find out.
Hang on. So at minimum, in this drone strike, had it happened, we would have seen Cliven Bundy, his wife, whoever was there immediately at the ranch would have been murdered, basically.
Oh, absolutely. And an armed Predator drone was flown out of, we now know, it's called a POC, a Predator Operations Center, where the DOD is on one side of the trailer and the CIA is on the other side of the trailer. There's yellow line down the middle. They're not supposed to commingle for constitutional reasons. But essentially, the armed Predator drone was flown, was authorized, and I'll tell you who authorized it, was authorized to be used lethally upon the Bundy family and their supporters.
Wow. One thing I want to rewind a little bit, tell people a little bit about the history behind this matter. So we made a documentary called Bundy versus Deep State. And one of the things I personally learned, and we talk about in that documentary, is how Harry Reid was so instrumental in what ultimately became the Obama administration, the Biden administration, and their policies. Harry Reid was also the individual that first coined the term domestic terrorist to refer to the Bundy Ranch Standoff, the Bundy family. And then that domestic terrorist term was used on Americans. Like, if you're like, hey, I'm pissed off that the school board is sexualizing my children, you became a domestic terrorist. So the significance of this moment in history is that this is the seed of how our own government went after patriots for basically about 10 years, right? About a decade.
Yeah, I do want to say this. I would say through our discussions, the main reason for this gathering is as we see the new administration come in, you got Kash Patel, you got Pam Bondi, you got Dan Bundy, you got a whole bunch of people that, suspected something was wrong. They didn't have access to it, but as soon as the administration took over, then they're told about these files, and you've got these whistleblowers that have been coming forward. So they're now having to go in to find out where the burn bags are in a special room that had restricted access to it, that all of this discoverable information as to their criminality has been hidden. Well, only very few people know where this documentation is hidden. And I'm going to say this, that through your case, Vem, okay, I believe that your case and I believe that you were framed, and this is how I'm going to tie it in. The term domestic terrorist does the following. It triggers the same level of surveillance that you would want to go get a member of ISIS or Al-Qaeda. FISA level, foreign intelligence gathering capabilities, but here in the United States of America. We were one of the first ones that once we were designated domestic terrorists, that triggered John Brennan's, James Clapper's, James Comey's special little system that they had set up for contractors to access NSA level surveillance capabilities. Domestic terrorist triggers the same level as if you were trying to find Osama bin Laden and ISIS fighters and Al-Qaeda. So that's a key statement being made right there. Now,
it also takes your legal rights away. That's one thing I want to point out, because the minute you're classified as a terrorist,
that's right.
Due process is gone. And by the way, this is a technique they've used on family law advocates all around the Western world to shut them up so they wouldn't talk about some of the kidnapping and trafficking of CPS. But anyway, want to mention that.
Yeah, and I mentioned this in the surveillance capabilities, and why we decided to come together is, of all the things that that our current administration is working on. Listen, I don't want to say anything disparaging towards anybody, even if I'm upset about Epstein stuff. Set all that aside. Bottom line is, we have information through our Bundy case leading all the way up to what I believe is your framing and your surveillance. I believe because of your direct involvement in producing a documentary that was critical. They wanted to kill a bunch of people, and it wasn't because we're patriots. They wanted the mineral rights. They wanted the water rights. There's trillions of dollars at stake. That's why they wanted to wipe out the American patriot. They can't have human beings on the land that stand up for the Constitution. So if you can get them into a domestic terrorist designation, you can listen to them as if, you can listen on their microwave. It opens up FISA level surveillance. Well, the Bundy cases and your framing, that entire period, exposes a lot of things that will show them where the belly of the beast is. President Trump knows about this, okay? And if you don't mind, I'm not going to go off on a tangent. This message is not just for the general public. We want those federal agents that are in authority right now. You need to look at the RICO lawsuit that President Trump filed. It made 79 references to a company called Newstar. It's called a RICO case. They dismissed that case. 1 month after President Trump filed that information about Newstar and their surveillance capabilities, the FBI got a search warrant for Mar-a-Lago. It was so bombshell, it was so critical that they get a hold of any documentation, classified information about this surveillance system that I'm talking about. We believe that because of that RICO lawsuit and what was disclosed in classified fashion, that's what prompted the Mar-a-Lago raid. We're going to hear much more about that. But this is the surveillance system basically it's a private NSA that James Clapper, John Brennan, James Comey, Hillary Clinton, all of them have been benefiting from. And if anybody ever wondered how these guys perpetrate lawfare, how they're able to find out exactly what, General Flynn said to who President Trump's supporters are, who the most influential people are, is because they have private control of an exact replica of the NSA system, except they're not bound by the Constitution as our military is.
I want to give a little bit of background. I'm going to fast forward. We're going to go a little nonlinear here, just to kind of explain how we arrived to these conclusions. So obviously, Pete Santilli tells me, hey, we got evidence here that a drone strike was authorized. So it became very clear that the Obama administration or the Obama-Biden administration, potential future Kamala administration, was willing to kill Americans and call them domestic terrorists, right? As occurred with the Bundy Ranch. Lo and behold, I get called by a gentleman by the name of Mike Little, who's part of that whole Bundy Ranch lawsuit. And he was actually one of the individuals that presented some laws and some precedent that helped the Bundys to get out of jail. We could get into that topic for a second, but Mike Little calls me, says, hey, could you make a documentary about this lawsuit we're filing against the federal government for all the bad stuff they did to the Bundys, right? Lo and behold, 6 weeks later, Mike Little passes away under very conspicuous circumstances. I cut together this half-finished documentary into a finished piece, which is released September 10th, a month before I'm accused of being the third Trump assassin, right? And then when you look at the third Trump assassin stuff and what happened, now we have information right from Chad Bianco's mouth that it was Biden's FBI that told Chad Bianco that I had apparently made statements, I am here to kill the president, which never happened, by the way. So that seems like a death warrant on me. When you're saying, hey, this guy said, he's here to kill the president, well, guess what? Now I have a target on my back.
Last but not least, you've got Vem Miller, right? So we heard about the third attempted assassination of President Trump. What we heard in the press conference was your deputies thwarted the attempted assassination of President Trump. So you got because I want to understand this. You got your information from your deputies. They passed over the information to you. Did you vet that information before you made that comment? And then the Epic Times comment where you said that Vem Miller said, I am here to kill President Trump. So I want to understand, Sheriff, help me to understand.
Well, that's absolutely not a fact. What was told to us, relayed through numerous people, through the FBI, the Secret Service, and my staff, from line staff up to management, was that he admitted he was there to shoot the president.
And this is why we started having this conversation. We started tying two and two together and going, they wanted to kill the Bundys, and then it seems like they want to frame and kill me. What do we have all in common? What we all have in common is that we're exposing the deep state tyranny of the Bundy Ranch standoff.
Okay, I don't want to get too technical, but those that are the powers that be, that is. And see, I've been blessed with having access. The worst thing they ever did was to entrap me as an investigative journalist, put me behind bars they held me for 619 days and have no pity for me. It's a blessing because I was able to figure all this out. I've been told by a retired military colonel, I'm probably one of three people that have not been read in that can speak about this, because once you have a top secret security clearance at the highest level, this is the highest level of security clearance, you cannot talk about it. And I was told that because I haven't been read, I'm probably one of three people that can talk about it, and I was told get very good security. Why do I bring this up? Because I, through my discovery, I found out about the terror designation, I found out about their surveillance capabilities, and actually ended up coming into contact with the person that designed the whole system that does the following. And when I came upon you, and you were deemed to be the third, assassin, I saw it for what it was. This system is so powerful, okay? You could be driving down, let me tell you how powerful the system is. The fusion centers all across the country have so much data pumping through it that if you're driving down the road, if you're a Republican voter, you have $10,000 in the bank, you're angry on social media, you voted for President Trump, your address, telephone number, all of that stuff shows up real time on a police officer screen. Comes from the fusion center. So if they pull you over and they ask you what your name is, they already know. They know that by your cell phone ping, that if you are Vem Miller, they know that cell phone is owned by Vem Miller, and they can they can see who you are within 2 centimeters. Why this is important is because if you are a target of their system, what they want to do is they want to let real life kind of play out. But if they're after you, okay, they know that if they make contact with Vem Miller at any point in time by happenstance, right? If you get pulled over because of a blinker or whatever, shows up on the screen, a front, facing, frontline sheriff is going to get this warning on his screen. He's going to have you pulled over. He's got to call an 800 number to the Department of Homeland Security, and they're going to say, hold this guy. And they're going to keep you there. And then the higher ups are going to come. And then the special operatives are going to come in there. And that's where you're going, from the sheriff to all of law enforcement that are not on a need-to-know basis, basically have captured you. And it's all through this system. You're surrounded by a bunch of people that make things happen. And I believe that you were entrapped by using this very sophisticated system. It's a very, very dangerous one. We have it all documented, all the fusion centers. In fact, I learned most about it through Maricopa County. You remember Maricopa County Sheriff's Department wouldn't give up their servers because the voting data was commingled with the law enforcement data?
Yeah.
This is what I'm talking about. All of it is combined, and it goes back and forth to the fusion centers, and it's used specifically for the purposes. They designed it for mass casualty events to find out who's a good guy and who's a bad guy when they come on scene. But what they did was they started weaponizing it to target people like you and surveil 30 million of their political opponents. Does that make sense to you? That when I saw, knowing what the system is, and then I heard that they had mischaracterized you as I said, this is a framing. They knew he had guns. By the way, they have gun registration merged into that database. They knew you had guns. They knew you had them in your possession. They registered to you. They had people following you. They just needed to let life circumstances rear its head real time. They've got people monitoring it. And then if you're near President Trump or near a venue with guns, they have probable cause to have you arrested and then make up this scenario. However that story is made up, that's crafted from high above.
And this is probably why Chad Bianco has felt so much courage and continue to lie, because until today, he continues to lie. I mean, it sounds like this man has serious backup, the wrong kind of backup, not necessarily patriots, but deep state bad people.
Mr. Bianco, just listening to him, and he sounded so confident that he was saving the world by taking Vem Miller off the streets. I said, somebody's in his ear. And whether he's a witting participant in this conspiracy to frame you or not, I would say if he's not, I would strongly encourage him to come forward through proper legal channels, blow the whistle. Whoever told you to say what you said and mischaracterize them. It's not just defamation or libel or any of those things. You were actually possibly an unwitting participant in a operation to frame Vem Miller. Now, why Vem Miller? I know why. I know exactly why. Your work in the Bundy documentary, and the Bundys told me this, resulted in the death of an individual that was exposing some things that could have cost the cabal trillions of dollars. You were working on one of the biggest things. They had to get Clive and Bundy off the land, okay? Because there's billions, tens of billions of dollars in natural resources wealth, water rights within that 600,000 acres. So they came up with this scenario that Clive Bundy's an old coot. It was all manufactured. They wanted the mineral rights. So why would they go after Vem Miller? You're exposing something that could cost them trillions of dollars in your documentary. They ended up, I believe, killing the main subject of your documentary. So is it possible that they can target you to get you off the streets? Absolutely. I believe you were framed.
But what happened there? I mean, they tried, obviously. They arrested me. Obviously, Chad Bianco threw all the accusations, all false. What happened there that just didn't play out the way they wanted it to?
Because we pushed back extremely heavily, because I think you recall, I saw it for what it was. I heard Alex Jones. They used social media influence operations to help push the the third assassin narrative. And Alex Jones may have been an unwitting participant, and he put out something completely false. Well, I sent Alex Jones a message and said, "You're way off, dude. That is not Vem Miller. He's not an assassin. He's one of us, and you need to talk to him." And by you going on Alex Jones, coming on my show, and us pushing back, it literally put a lid on how that story was to evolve in that framing. If you didn't have that exposure, you would have been gone in the dark of night.
Yeah. Kudos to my amazing friends. I can't, like you, Mindy Robinson, Noel Fritch. There's dozens of individuals that really stood up and told the truth. Really saved my butt. Tell me a little bit more, man. So they had, obviously they threw Cliven in jail, no due process, threw his sons in jail. They were in jail for 2 years. And then from what I understand, Mike Little, the guy that unfortunately died during the making of Bundy versus Deep State, he was the one that actually gave them the information that was necessary for them to get out of prison after those 2 years. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
A lot of that. And I remembered I was in prison scrubs and shackles, and we were facing criminal charges. I faced 4 life sentences. There were, upwards of 20 of us at one point in time. But it whittled down to the ones that were willing to gut it up and go to trial. We said we wanted to go to trial. The federal government doesn't have people going to trial. We knew we were innocent. Even when people feel that they're innocent, it's too costly to take your case to trial. Nobody has $2 million minimum to defend yourself in a federal trial. That's why they enjoy a 97% success rate. We said, you guys are the criminals. We did absolutely nothing wrong. And it wasn't a standoff. It was a protest. They said, you're anti-law enforcement. We're like, no, we're not. Our protest was about getting the sheriff to intervene and to tell you your federal authority doesn't apply here in the state of Nevada. So we're the opposite of what you were trying to characterize us as. It was all false characterization. We knew that what they were doing was absolutely wrong. The sheriff intervened, and thankfully nobody died in 2014. But in 2016, Robert Lavoie Finicum was actually ambushed and murdered, and the FBI covered that up. So I'm saying that the Bundy family, us godly patriots, and I learned how to become a better Christian man through the whole process, and prayer works. I'm telling you, because I'm here. I'm present right now as a result of prayer and God's miracles, because I faced 4 life sentences, and we ended up pressing all the way through to trial and exposing everything that I'm telling you about, and then some. Not only that, major whistleblowers on the inside, federal agents, Larry Wooten in particular, FBI agents were testifying on the stand in our favor. We had a whistleblower that designed the surveillance system that the FBI and the CIA use, and it's in Fort Washington, Maryland, abused in Fort Washington, Maryland. That the Obama administration was using their little private NSA system that my whistleblower built. How did I come into contact with this guy? Because his attorney just so happened to be one of Cliven Bundy's attorneys.
It's amazing. It's amazing the miracles that happen.
I'm smiling because how could that have ever happened? And Vem, I need to make this point, and especially federal agents out there that may be listening, or somebody in authority in the administration. This is not happenstance. Okay. This is something that led all the way up to me meeting for the first time Vem Miller in a parking lot. I'm with the Bundys, and it just so happens that Vem Miller wants to come in and start taking pictures and listening in. I'm like, who are you? I'm a documentary film. And I said, I know what documentary filmmakers are. They're actually FBI. And that's what ended up happening. Longbow Productions. So when you said documentary, I said, no, please step aside. Well, you were not FBI. You were not a documentary filmmaker, being run by, Longbow Productions. But I'll tell you what, we were surrounded by, upwards of 20 FBI agents in that parking lot. Mm-hmm. That day, we were being surveilled and surrounded. We found that out how? Through Michelle Fiore's political persecution through her trials and her discovery that day for that press conference, that place was surrounded by FBI agents. We were both being surveilled by the same exact system we're talking about today.
Yeah, and I remember you being definitely the elder statesman, a lot more experience. I mean, I was kind of clueless, and afterwards you pulled me aside and you're like, look, I verified you. It seems like you're all right, but you might not be aware, but you're surrounded by federal agents, which that since then I've had my eyes a lot more open, but you actually spotted it that day before we got confirmation.
And you know, it's not, I'm not of the wiser or smarter. The worst thing they ever did was to take an investigative journalist and put me behind bars with all the discovery. And basically, we just read everything. We prepared for trial, and we tried to do the right thing and expose the real criminals. And the federal agents started agreeing with us. The marshals were apologizing to us. They're like, they were sitting in the courtroom. They said, you know what? You guys are great patriots, and we're so sorry that, you know, our government is doing this to you. So this is going to continue. It's going to get bigger and bigger. That's why we're putting this message out right now. I'm going to throw back to you, and I'm going to have you guide us back through. That's the best introduction that I can give, because there's stuff, Vem, that you didn't even know about that I just relayed to you about this set of circumstances. When I say you were framed, I'm 99.99999% sure that you were framed. I'm 100% certain that you were surveilled by the FBI that day, and I was there with you, and we verified it through Michelle Fiore's discovery.
And it's because I was hanging out with the Bundys and doing...
Oh, yes. They killed your Mike Little. They killed him. They do not want... They thought they could get rid of that case. Thankfully, Ryan Bundy is still on that case, and we're going to proceed forward. This is the very, very beginning of bringing this cabal down. This discussion right here, this information needs to go to the people that are within the administration as if you didn't know what room the burn bags are in, where the bodies are buried. We have all of it. It's been over 10 years we've been doing this investigation, and we're looking to sit down and cooperate with the Department of Justice and all federal investigators.
And, you know, we talked about this, you know, we had a conversation prior to this podcast where essentially the goal here is, you know, I'm in a situation right now where I could depose people. I could help the federal government. Like, if the goal of the federal government is to take down these bad individuals that steal our land, that criminalize patriots, well, this is the intent of this podcast. Initially, I was a little bit peeved because, honestly, man, it's been 10 months, and I would love for somebody to come out of, you know, out of the federal government, like a Cash Patel, and say, you know, this is nonsense, and work with us. But we are putting our hand out right now saying we have the power to depose a lot of the people that are doing these bad things because of my case, because frankly of my parents' case and what happened to them. And we are here to help out anybody that wants our help. That is a message.
I need to pause the video here to fill in some more information that's very relevant to this matter. So in the case of the third assassin hoax, for those paying attention, for those that have seen our website, the Third Assassin documentary preview, what happened on October 12 and 13 of the year 2024 was that the Secret Service officially said that I am no threat. But then Chad Bianco goes and he still has his press conference.
I am glad that we're not talking about this after we shot him. If you're asking me right now, I probably did have deputies that prevented the third assassination attempt. He was a lunatic. It's people trying to do harm, and thank God we prevented it. And we know that we prevented something bad from happening, and it's irrelevant what that bad was going to be. I truly do believe that we prevented another assassination attempt.
And then somehow the LVMPD is authorized to carry out a fake welfare check on my parents' home where they think I live. They're armed with incorrect information, meaning I still have guns, even though the Riverside Sheriff's Department knows that they have my guns. And I am still a potential assassin, even though 36 hours before, the Secret Service and the FBI released a joint statement to say that I wasn't a threat. And on top of it, Sheriff McMahill, the sheriff of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, has already made a written statement saying that he did not authorize this and that he would investigate this matter. And then this all went into a black hole. Because what's clear is that somehow the LVMPD was unlawfully authorized by rogue powers to go to my parents' home armed with false information, ready to knock the door down. And what happens then if I was there? Is that where you hear the story where, ooh, he was reaching for something, so we had to shoot him dead? And then this entire conspiracy disappears.
That's right. And we might be reaching people like, let's say, Chad Bianco, the sheriff. Maybe he was unwitting. He was told certain things. He made a mistake. You need to remember who put that in your ear and caused you say such a thing. Now you're going to be held to account for it. Now, if you were a willing, active participant, we're going to run you up the flagpole. We will find you out, pursue you, get the discovery, and we're not going to stop until you're fully exposed and held accountable. It goes both ways. But we want to prompt people that, listen, you're compartmentalized. You don't know why you were told to say that, and look at what the repercussions are, and you just think that you're involved in a PR nightmare. No, it's all pre-planned. How do I know? Because I had it done to me. I know their sources and methods. I've got everything legally documented. 10 years I've been doing this investigation. That's why when you came upon the public realm being the third assassin, I said, that guy's being framed. He's absolutely being framed. No doubt about it. They're pursuing him. They killed Mike Little. When did they kill Mike Little relative to when you were suddenly the assassin?
August 24, Mike Little dies. He falls deathly ill before that, but he dies August 24. September 10 is when a documentary came out. October 13 was when I was called the third assassin by Sheriff Chad Bianco. So,
how many days transpired between the two?
Month and a few days.
Sir, if you don't understand, they allow things to evolve naturally. They use AI technology. They have you targeted. They know that when you're they don't know that you're going to be at this 7-Eleven in in Los Angeles, California at a certain time. But when you get there, they're going to have people surveilling you, and as things come about, they use AI technology and they can start triggering people. And you think that those circumstances just happened? Oh my goodness, it was I was just driving up to a Trump rally and I had guns and I pulled over and mentioned something to a sheriff's deputy that I had guns, and boom, that's the trigger that causes something that you think naturally occurred. But it wasn't. It was all pre-planned. They need that natural occurrence. That way you don't suspect that you've been under this very sophisticated targeting program.
Wow.
You understand?
Totally understand. Totally. Now you've sent me a ton of receipts here. I'm going to edit these receipts into the actual podcast. But could you run us through some of these receipts you have? What each one means? The most significant things that you'd like us to show the audience?
I do want you to see this now. The main thing that I want everyone to see is that the culmination of almost 10 years of investigation, even since this letter was sent. As soon as President Trump came into office, Pam Bondi was put in place and Kash Patel was FBI director. I pieced everything together in a format that, as you see, it's called it's number one, Bondi Kash letter, right? And it was delivered and hand-delivered by a very trusted source that says delivered by a trusted source. I don't want that person. As a matter of fact, it wasn't even spoken of over regular communications channels that they listen in on to make sure that it got in their hands. It was delivered to Pam Bondi and Kash Patel on the day that he was sworn in. And it contained all the information that even prior to that, I had given a sworn affidavit to a federal judge, Judge Gloria Navarro, all right? This entire list, this affidavit, okay, you cannot lie to federal agents. I agreed to provide an affidavit and swear under penalty of perjury that if anything that I provide to the federal government or to a federal agent, I can be held accountable to it. And I provided all of the exhibits. That exhibit list that was attached to this document that was provided to them. We have legal cases that have been in effect since since 2015 or so. It began with our whistleblower. So that exhibit list, just to give you an idea of what evidence is contained, and you have the receipts. I sent you copies of it because everything that we're talking about here is backed up. If you're a federal agent, I can help you with your case file and provide you with case numbers on any thread or line that you wish to pursue. The exhibit page at the end kind of like takes you through the entire evolution. But Fort Washington, Maryland, attachment A. All right. Just to give you an example, as the attachments come down through here. I go from Fort Washington, Maryland, and I go right to the Baker transcript. You probably saw that, Vem, and said, what do I need to know about the Baker transcript? Do you know who James Baker is?
Of course I do, yeah.
Okay. James Baker was a senior counsel for the FBI. A whistleblower that we're talking about provided evidence of everything, including the video of the armed predator drone strike on Bundy Ranch. On 47 hard drives, okay, as a whistleblower. It was delivered to a special set of FBI agents that had SAP level clearance, right? That's special access programs. That's no compartmentalization. That's the highest level. The President of the United States has SAP. So he had to deliver these 47 hard drives. There was actually 53. But mid-flight, the ones that showed the surveillance of Israeli intelligence by the Obama administration, those were taken out. Okay, so 47 ended up by the time the flight ended, and Attorney Larry Klayman, as well as the whistleblower, went into the skiff, provided testimony. Larry Klayman was given SAP level clearance for 2 hours, and those discs were turned over. On the in one of the Senate, the Russia collusion and one of those testimonies where Baker was called in, he admitted to hearing the name Larry Klayman and the claims of the whistleblower. And that's confirmed there in the Baker transcripts. So we're talking about the highest levels of our government. So I open up, I show you Fort Washington, Maryland in that attachment. The Baker transcript, which means the attorney for the FBI acknowledged that a whistleblower had come forward, right? Then the government acknowledged on the open record that the 47 hard drives were taken in by the whistleblower, claiming that 30 million Americans were spied upon by the Obama administration. It involved data regarding voter fraud. It involved data regarding predator drone surveillance. It involved techniques for how they track, trace, and frame people like you on those 47 hard drives. And the government acknowledged receipt of it and storage within the Office of the Inspector General's storage locker. The OIG has everything that I'm talking about right now in their possession, and the government acknowledged that. And that's D, attachment D. I'm bringing this up, folks, if you're just a regular listener and you're an average citizen, you're like, why am I hearing all these details? I want you to remember something. Somebody told Kash Patel what room to go in to find the burn bags, okay? It's kept off the record. There is no such thing as an inventory of XYZ and where the evidence is located. Nobody's going to go back to a 2016 transcript to see the acknowledgement that the information was received. We're coming out right now to say that every allegation that I've made and probable cause to show that Vem Miller was framed, right? That this is the opportunity for us to say once and for all, go find the evidence at the Office of Inspector General's evidence storage locker. You never even knew it was there. You didn't know about the documents in the burn bag, but we're here to tell you that it's time to expose this whole thing. This involves corporate espionage on an international level. This involves, and President Trump exposed it, News Star. 79 references to it in President Trump's RICO lawsuit. That this surveillance system they were spying on other countries They were spying on corporations. They're doing insider trading. They're stealing money. And it's all happening in Fort Washington, Maryland. And it's being run by John Brennan, James Clapper, James Comey, and Hillary Clinton. And they also use very special techniques for communicating among each other. If you ever wondered how they're able to all get on the same page at the same time, and they're all operating in unison. President Trump says that all the time, doesn't he? He says Democrats stick together. They get their operational orders on the servers that are located in Fort Washington, Maryland. And it just so happens to be child porn servers that the FBI has been using, and they got caught doing this. And the FBI's child porn servers that they operate for the purposes, they say for investigating child porn, no. They use the chat rooms on the child porn servers to communicate their operational orders to all of their deep state operatives and assassins and assets around the world.
Wow. Child porn servers. I mean, why child porn servers? What's going on there?
If you imagine blackmail, we have documented 11 references, 11 child porn sites that are attributed to Chief Justice John Roberts. Okay. Does that mean that John Roberts is a pedophile and he's visiting child porn sites? No. The FBI got caught, and I've actually provided legal documentation that they got caught running 23 child porn servers, and at one point in time, they were deemed to be the world's largest proliferator of child pornography because of this. They said they were doing it to investigate child pornography, but no, it's an operational security mechanism that if you invite somebody in like Chief Justice Roberts, if he breathes one word about it, he has child pornography on his cell phone or on his computer, and he's arrested immediately.
Wow.
It's used for blackmail.
You can't expose them if you're part of this cabal then, because they'll just say you're a child pornographer.
How do I know this? Because I was invited to view on a screen on an offshore server, right, the 11 websites that were attributed to John Roberts and what the communications was, okay? And then there were a few people on there. I had my attorney on the line with me. And somebody encouraged me to take a screenshot of it. And my attorney said, don't do that. He said, as soon as you make a screenshot of it, you are in possession of child pornography, you'll be arrested. Period. So I was almost entrapped.
Wow.
Yes, this is how serious it is. If you are in possession of a URL, and it's on your phone, and you have a screenshot of it, you're in possession of child pornography, you'll be arrested.
Wow.
They use this as leverage to keep operational security. It doesn't mean that these guys are pedophiles. That's where they get their operational orders. Now, how do we know what messaging goes out through the FBI or the Secret Service all the way down to the frontline level when you're pulled off to the side of the road by a sheriff? It happens almost real time through these chat rooms.
What was told to us relayed through numerous people, through the FBI, the Secret Service, and my staff, from line staff up to management, was that he admitted he was there to shoot the president.
The whistleblower that submitted his affidavit that described the whole system is attachment Y, the Montgomery Declaration, it's called. He designed the system, by the way. This whistleblower did. He's given testimony, and guess what? I can't publish the transcript of his testimony and can't see it. You want to know why? Because it's been protected by a state secrets privilege by John Negroponte, and I've actually included that as well. We cannot publish this information as to their exact sources and methods because a lot of these things are used to go get bad guys. We have to strip out, okay? And it's a legal maneuver in the state of Nevada we've been working through for 10 years. We have to declassify crimes against the American people in the United States of America, but we can't disclose our sources and methods for how we communicate operational orders to our assets overseas. Do you understand? So this can't be disclosed, but all of the evidence is in possession of the OIG. The whistleblowers come forward. He's shown what server he built and transferred it to Fort Washington, Maryland. And the efforts to get this declassification, okay, done was, it just so happens that, and this happened by accident, I don't know how it happened. Everything that I'm describing to you can be validated by an attorney. Her name is Sigal Chattah. She was involved in the pretrial preparation for former Nevada Assemblywoman Michelle Fiore. She just happens to be really good friends with her. Good GOP, ally. Well, it just so happens that when President Trump came in, that Sigal Chattah was nominated to become the U.S. Attorney in the state of Nevada. She personally told me she's validated Montgomery's case. Not only that, she filed with the federal government to get this stuff declassified. So right now, your former attorney, Sigal Chattah, knows everything I'm saying, and that she could bring me in for testimony, and we could go right to the discs at the OIG. She's already tried to get this declassified. They prevented her from doing it, but now she's the U.S. Attorney for the state of Nevada. What a coincidence, isn't it?
What a coincidence. Tell me about it. I mean, Sigal, so people know, she was my initial attorney. We had to transfer the case to California, so I did have to find a California attorney. At the same time, she got this offer for the U.S. attorney position. But you're saying she could definitely make some moves, and she knows the information to really expose this stuff.
Let's put it this way. Even if they try to get Sigal Chattah to back off, if all of a sudden she goes back in there, let's say Pam Bundy hears us talking about this. Mm-hmm. You don't need to contact me. Contact the U.S. Attorney for the state of Nevada and ask her if what I just said is 1,000% true.
Wow.
Ask her. And she will say, yes, what Pete said, because Sigal just so happened to tell me that everything about that declaration, everything about these legal cases, everything about the child porn servers, everything about the surveillance, she was trying to get what they were weaponizing against the American people and the United States government. She was trying to get that declassified because you cannot put an SAP level, a state secrets privilege, on crimes against the United States of America and the American people. So Sigal Chattah knows all this. You can check with the U.S. Attorney. Now, if she denies saying that to me, everything is well documented and recorded. So she wouldn't want to. I mean, she knows this because we're in pretrial preparation. So it's well documented for saying this. That wasn't a threat against anybody as far as recordings. We were doing pre-trial prep, so it was real important. We kept copious notes with a lot of people in the room.
Wow. I mean, what happens next? What are we hoping happens next? Is there evidence that you'd like to show that we haven't touched upon yet?
Yes, I would like to direct your attention, and this is the main file, the attachment E, okay, which is FBI evidence receipt. I want you to put that. We have not only the serial numbers of the discs that were turned over. It's in the evidence locker. It's acknowledged by the government. But the serial numbers of the discs, all of those hard drives, the 47 hard drives, they contain all of the evidence that I'm disclosing here. There's also backup copies of it as well. Now, why haven't they been released to the public? Because nobody in this effort wants to harm the United States of America by putting out there our sources and methods that are used to go get our bad guys. That's why the system was designed. It's the most sophisticated surveillance system to go get bad guys. That's what it was designed to do. When Barack Obama came into office, through his relationship being a CIA asset, if not agent, all the way back to Brzezinski when they were setting up the Mujahideen in Pakistan, and then, of course, Barack Obama being in Pakistan, working with John Brennan, then bringing both Brzezinski and John Brennan in, that when Barack Obama actually got in office, he took all of this work that had been done with Brennan in the private sector, as well as James Comey at Lockheed as general counsel. This was all set up to surveil Americans and to permanently enslave us by having access to all of this technology and deploy it against the American people. Barack Obama had a terminal in the White House. Newstar provided connectivity to Fort Washington, Maryland. President Trump knew about this. It's referenced 79 times in the RICO lawsuit. Okay? So when you put it up on the screen, show the serial numbers of the discs. Let everybody know that if they mysteriously disappeared, Don't worry about it. We have backup copies. Everything is backed up and it's being protected. We need to declassify crimes against the United States of America, the American people, and hold those people that have weaponized this very powerful system that we, the American people, designed and used to go get the bad guys overseas, has been weaponized by Brennan, Comey, and Obama to help overthrow the United States of America. I believe, Vem, that your case should be the straw that finally broke the camel's back. I mean, who would have ever had an attorney to defend you in what you thought was a defamation case? Sigal Chattah knew what she was dealing with when I told her that you were being framed. She knew what system was available to frame you because she did the filing with my whistleblower, and she confirmed that everything he said was correct, and she put her name to it in court. I want you to put that screenshot up with her name on that filing. Your attorney was involved in getting this declassification. We need the appropriate authorities to do this, and let's expose the truth, and let's stop this harm against the United States of America, up to and including the President of the United States. I want to get you also, Vem, with a sit down that we're working towards with a whole bunch of attorneys. General Flynn is leading this effort. General Michael Flynn has a whole bunch of whistleblowers. Guess who was the director of, the Defense Intelligence Agency head of the time that all this stuff was going on in Fort Washington, Maryland? Guess who it was?
Who?
General Flynn.
General Flynn, wow.
General Flynn has never been able to talk about this with me, but General Flynn and the team of attorneys are wanting to sit down with the DOJ, right? Rather than sue them and go through discovery. No, we're going to tell you where the burn bags are. We're going to sit down with the DOJ and we're going to expose this once and for all. I believe that your case is an important part of that, especially because of its high profile nature and your involvement with the Bundy cases.
Wow. So you were mentioning a document where Sigal, you said, showed on screen. Could you tell me exactly which document?
So this thing, if somebody reads it, you don't read legalese. You don't understand what the importance of this particular filing by your attorney, coincidentally. Mm-hmm. Sigal Chattah, who coincidentally is now the U.S. attorney, all right? She had to remember when you put a state secrets privilege, all right, I'm going to give you the exact exhibit that you're going to be able to pull it, that the equivalent of Tulsi Gabbard declared that all of this information was to be sealed under a national security state secrets privilege, right? That classification blocks everybody out. Nobody can see it. It's compartmentalized. Nobody, they don't know what room it's in or what computer file. It's the highest level of security. You cannot put a state secrets privilege on anything that is crimes against the United States of America or the American people. Any criminal acts you cannot classify. Is that understood?
Yes, I do. Yep.
So Sigal's efforts were because we could have released everything. We could have released all the copies of the 47 hard drives. You know what that would have done? It would have exposed everything, including surveillance of the intelligence services worldwide that we benefit from. We listen to everything. We have the most sophisticated surveillance system on planet Earth, and it would give away all of our sources and methods to our bad guys, and we do not want to do that. But legally, we had to extract what we know is illegal activity. Obama accessing the terminal, with the terminal in the White House, targeting 30 million Americans, and James Baker confirming that this was about crimes against the United States of America. Sigal did this filing, and it was called a motion to restrict application of the state secrets privilege, the protective order, and the classified information non-disclosure agreement. Understood? So her job was to take the stuff out of the 47 hard drives that are at the CIA's OIG and just use the stuff that were crimes against the United States of America that we're disclosing in this effort here. Everyone is petrified of this. They're so petrified. The whole system comes down if we expose this.
Wow. This is surreal, man. The fact that we're even talking about this whole thing is so surreal. So, all right, is there any exhibits that we haven't exposed, we haven't shown that's important to go over?
Yes, I'm going to say it's important to show when I say that it's a state secrets privilege, right? As a matter of fact, forget about the whistleblower. We don't even need the whistleblower anymore. They attacked him for, 10, 15 years. Of course they did. The CIA said he's this, that, and the other thing. Well, the whistleblower, they attacked the messenger. All of the information is confirmed on the court record, and the equivalent of Tulsi Gabbard came in and assigned a national security state secrets privilege, okay? And that is the Negroponte. And I'm going to have you put the Negroponte state secrets privilege protective order, locking all of this down and misclassifying it. Nobody's been able to expose this in the court system. I am talking about it because I haven't been read in with the security clearance. I'm not violating anything. I haven't seen it, and I'm not required from, confirming or denying it like everybody else is. President Trump can't speak of what I just spoke of. He's prohibited because he's been read in. He knows about it. Nobody else can do this. If they've been compartmentalized, they cannot speak of Fort Washington, Maryland. General Flynn cannot talk to me about Fort Washington, Maryland, but he knows that I know about Fort Washington, Maryland. So Negroponte and his signature, which is the equivalent of Tulsi Gabbard, saying we're sealing everything, nobody can look at it except for the president and 5 other people, right? Mm-hmm. That document is here. And this is what I want through your case, your exposure. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I'm seeing your case. I want you to recognize how dangerous this has been. You felt like you were immersed in a mischaracterization, a demonization, maybe defamation. No, you were targeted 1 month after the main principal in your documentary film was murdered. And a month later, you're the Trump assassin. You felt like things were happening nationally and they're not connected, but they certainly are. And I recognize it because I know what their capabilities are. This must be exposed. President Trump, I can say with 100% certainty that President Trump knows about it. You know how I know why?
How?
Put this on the screen. President Trump's RICO lawsuit that was filed in March of, I forget what year it was, the RICO lawsuit. I don't have the date right on it. Okay? President Trump, how do I know that President Trump knows? How do I know that? I've had Peter Tickton, his attorney, who is down at the bottom of this filing. And I asked Peter Tickton because of what I knew about the Bundy cases, and I knew about all of this stuff, so I could very quickly establish what President Trump had filed here in 108 pages. 79 references to New Star. Okay? Everything contained in there relative to New Star is classified information that had to be relayed from President Trump to his attorneys, right? In order for him to defend himself in this RICO case. It was classified. It was conveyed to his attorneys, Alina Habba and Peter Tickton, right? 1 month after Peter Tickton did this filing, the FBI sought a search warrant of Mar-a-Lago. And I asked Peter Tickton, what were they looking for? Documents relative to this? He said, I cannot confirm nor deny, he told me. Peter Tickton did. Okay? Nobody can talk about it. But President Trump knows everything we just discussed in this thing. He knows this. And everybody needs to know that both you and I will sit down with what we know about each of our independent cases and testify truthfully under oath. And I have all the documentation to back up my theories are actually factualized. And we have whistleblowers.
So let me ask you, we're going to show all these images on screen as you're talking about it. Now, is this material that we have, the evidence that we have that we'll show as a part of this podcast, is that available for people to download? Could we put a zip file out there for people to download all this stuff and see for themselves?
We can. I would say that the biggest preparatory work in that, that letter, that package that went to Pam Bondi and Kash Patel was just done, back in, what was the date? February, I think he was sworn in on the 24th, February 24th. all of that evidence, that entire package, we focused on getting it to the appropriate people in Bundy and Patel and Bondino and the proper authorities. All the attorneys know about it. Everybody knows about it. But the American public needs to put pressure. We need to put pressure out there. And it's just like, we know, Kash Patel, where some burn bags are located and in which room, okay, which trash can. And that's what we're doing through this thing. So we're going to need public support, just like with the Epstein stuff, right? You get public groundswell support. Who is out there right now, if you're concerned with relative to the Epstein cases about abuse of our children, who is concerned, ladies and gentlemen, about our deep state using child porn servers, the FBI running them running them in Fort Washington, Maryland, and child porn servers being used to communicate operational orders worldwide?
Sorry, I got to ask this. Now, prior to Obama and this kind of duplication of our intelligence services with these secret servers, was child porn servers always being used for information like this? Was that part of their operation?
This is what I want to do. I'm going to get you this document right here. Ready? It's been going on a long time. Ever since John Brennan has been around, they've been employing these tactics. John Brennan, I think, was involved in creating this. Okay. You can look up Operation Flicker. Have you ever heard of Operation Flicker?
I have not, no.
All right. Operation Flicker. It was published because 5,000 Pentagon employees were found to have child pornography on their computers at the Pentagon. And we thought that they were a bunch of pedos.
Wow.
And now we understand, and you're going to put it, it's literally an OIG investigation, 5,000 employees. Nobody was fired. Nobody was disciplined. And they were all using it to communicate with assets overseas. They used child pornography. Here's another thing. Osama bin Laden, quote unquote. Remember all the electronics that were seized?
Mm-hmm.
The reason for that, and it was found that Osama bin Laden, you can look this up. I don't have an exhibit, but you can look this up. Osama bin Laden had a lot of child porn, a lot of pornography, right? It's because video pornography is used, and they embed messaging so that the jihadists can communicate with each other. They use pornography, and child pornography in particular, to communicate their operational orders and the embedding in videos. How do I know this? Because my whistleblower invented it.
Wow.
And this is a known fact about Osama bin Laden. They seized all of his electronics, all of his, and you can probably look this up. Navy SEAL Team 6 that went and supposedly shot and killed CIA asset Osama bin Laden mysteriously ended up being shot out of the sky on Extortion 17 by the Obama administration, getting set up into an ambush. How do I know that? Because I know all the Navy SEAL Team 6 family members who just so happen to have the same attorney as my whistleblower on the system.
Wow. So, all right. So John Brennan seems like we've heard that he was, he let in a lot of these 9/11 hijackers. I mean, that's new information that's coming out. Do you want to talk a little bit about the significance of that?
Just the other day, Mike Benz put it out, and I can give you actually the actual clip. The first time I heard, and I had always known about it because of an ABC News report that identified that there were lapses in security. I have that. I'm going to give you that news report. It was ABC News. They reported that the investigation showed there were lapses in security, that some of the 9/11 hijackers had gotten through on visas that should have never been approved. Okay. Then just the other day, a whistleblower who was a high-level State Department authority that was in charge of doing it all outed this process by which they use visas to move their assets around. John Brennan was the one that directed those that stamped those. He approved the visas of the 9/11 hijackers. 3 of those hijackers, and I'm going to give you this document as well if you want to show it on the screen. A former DEA agent in Guantanamo Bay identified that 2 definitely, 1 was questionable. 3 of the 9/11 hijackers were John Brennan's assets. John Brennan approved their student visas in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. So of the 15 hijackers approved by John Brennan, 3 of them were his known CIA assets. He can't say he didn't know who they were.
Wow.
And a DEA agent testified to this in Guantanamo Bay.
Wow.
It's maybe overwhelming to most people, but guess what? Folks, you need to share this so that it'll get in the hands of the good guys that are within our system right now. Those are the most important people at the DOJ at the highest levels, and all those people that are compartmentalized down below. Something clicks with you, take this thing to the high. We don't have SAP level clearance, Vem Miller, you and I, but we have access without any compartmentalization of everything.
So I got to ask this. I mean, there was many years there where we thought, a lot of people thought there's a lot of pedophiles in our government. So are you telling me that because of these servers, John Brennan and what's his name, John Roberts, we've heard a lot of conspiracy theories about these guys. Is it because they're using these servers that they got labeled so a lot of the people that we think, they're pedophiles, whatever, are just people using child porn servers to communicate, or is that 2 different topics?
This is what I will say, honestly. I don't have any evidence as to who actually went over, because they're communicating in the chat rooms. I do know that. I saw that. I saw the communications logs. In fact, I had an internal DOJ. I'm gonna show you another published report I was asked to in October, prior to the 2020 election, to publish screenshots, and I was told to put it out in the public that we caught them communicating, and I published one screenshot that was given to me to let them know that we've been watching them. Okay, I do know that they communicate their operational orders. Norm Eisen, you know who Norm Eisen is?
I do not know.
Norm Eisen is a very important name. He will be indicted before this is all done. He basically wrote the book on color revolutions and wrote the Transition Integrity Project manual for overthrowing us in 2020. Norm Eisen, Neil Keitel, and Mark Elias were caught in the chat rooms running ballot harvesting operations.
I've heard those 2 names before. I've heard those 2 names from Ivan Raycliffe,
yes.
By the way.
I'm going to show you what I was asked to publish in October to let them know that we're watching them, to hopefully get them to, I was just told to do it, and I just did what I was told. I said, this is bombshell information. And I published it on my website, and I'll show that to you. So you're going to see an example of the chat rooms. All I know is that that's how they communicate, okay? Is in the chat rooms. Now, can you say that 5,000 Pentagon employees that had child porn on their computers, who were never disciplined or arrested, are pedophiles within the Pentagon? Or would you say that that's part of a high-level, top-secret program in communicating?
Yeah, it seems like what you're saying is plausible. Yeah, that's scary. If we really have 5,000 pedophiles in the Pentagon, I mean, that is really scary.
Well, if we did and they weren't held accountable, okay. So I'm making an assumption here. I do know that the Pentagon is aware of this program at the highest levels, right? They communicate operational orders to who they created: Al Qaeda, ISIS, the Mujahideen, right? The Free Syrian Army. They give all their operational orders through child pornography. So none of them were disciplined or arrested because they were doing what the government designed to do, to go communicate with bad guys and save the world, right? Wow. So 5,000 through Operation Flicker, right, have never been held to account. John Roberts has 11 websites. Can I say definitively that I saw John Roberts frequenting those sites to observe abuse against children? No. Did I see his chats? Yes.
Wow. I mean, it's a very clever idea. If you want to really protect national security and you could throw child porn charges or pedophilia, whatever, at people, I mean, that's a really good way to make sure that even if they're displeased about what's happening on these servers, that they'll never talk about it.
Well, imagine all of your ISIS operators running around on their cell phones with child pornography videos, right? and they're getting their marching orders from Osama bin Laden, right? And embedded in the video. If they breathe a word of it and say, oh, I'm going to cooperate and turn in Osama bin Laden, right? You get arrested for having child porn on your phone.
Yeah.
It's operational security mechanism. It's ingenious.
And it's the biggest threat. I mean, when this whole third assassin thing happened, the first thing I got warned of was be careful they don't put child porn on your computer, because they might try to entrap you with some stuff to cover up this whole mess they created and all the pending lawsuits, you know?
Through this system in Fort Washington, Maryland, they can do anything they want to you at any given moment if you're a target. They could go so far as to frame you for attempting to assassinate the President of the United States. They could go that far, Vem. So help me God.
Wow. Pete, is there anything we haven't talked about? Any exhibits we should show before we wrap up this episode?
I will say this is so well documented. I've never really said this to the point to where I'm about to say it. It was such a blessing to be one of their targets, because if I hadn't been a target of this system, I would have never been arrested. I would have never met Cliven Bundy. And I'm so glad that I was blessed to be a target. And I'm also going to say that before this is done, Vem, because I know what your integrity is, I know the work that you're doing, I know the documentaries that you've done it with such tremendous passion, that one day you'll understand what I just said, that it's been such a blessing to have this. And I don't want stuff to happen to your family. I don't like that. What happened to my mom and my dad, their son being called a terrorist. But I promise you, your parents are going to be very proud of the work that you do, that you'll understand that this has all been a blessing, that God has chosen a select few of us to pursue the truth, and we will. So help me God.
Yeah. Well, that's powerful, man. Thank you. And I hope so, man. I hope so. That's why we've been doing this work, and it's disappointing that nothing's happened, but what you're saying is actually, it gives me confidence that we're helping, and that's all we want to do here. So.
Yeah, and Vem, we haven't had this discussion. Every person out there needs to know, even those that are not close. You can't tell me that all of these connections happened coincidentally, that God has had a hand in all this, including, Robert Lavoie Finicum died, of course. People could have been killed, hundreds and hundreds of federal officers that came in 2014, that a whole bunch of godly people, or people that may not be godly, God has had his hand over this. I mean, who could have ever put Sigal Chattah on your case, completely independent of what?
It's crazy. And if I could tell a little bit of background on that, it's just so crazy, because the reason I even know Sigal Chattah is because in 2022, we were both called to run for office to have our voices be heard. That's how I met Sigal. So they knew what I'm made of, and probably I'm a loudmouth. So under different circumstances, they might be Vem's a loudmouth, but under these circumstances, certainly, I was really surprised that the Nevada GOP, Sigal Chattah, who's a part of the GOP and now is U.S. Attorney, Jesse Law, Michael McDonald, they all said there's no way this guy's an assassin, and they had my back, and they jumped. And it's crazy, it's like seeing God's work in all this, because she becomes a U.S. Attorney. She's in the perfect position right now. Obviously, she couldn't continue my case because the case had to be moved to California. And there's so much more, man. Mike Little coming into my life, and Mike Little telling the story, meeting all these individuals in the Bundy world. I see a lot of miracles. I see the tapestry of God at work.
Yes, and I'm going to say this and let it get out there. So I don't want. I'm speaking to federal agents that I will testify to.
Yeah,
I have your attorney, who was vulnerable as an attorney. It was very scared at the time as to what she had come about, and she probably didn't even discuss how serious it was. She was very scared, and I have her on audio recording talking about how she's a single mom. And she's encountered some stuff, but she said, we're going to pursue how we can win and then hopefully expose some of this other stuff. But she was scared because of what she had encountered through my whistleblower, right? and then you being connected to this. And she said, look, I'm a single mom. But guess what the blessing is? If she hears my voice or anybody else does, she's now a U.S. attorney. She has the full force and protection of the U.S. government now to protect her and her integrity to pursue the truth that she knows is everything that I just described. That's a blessing.
Yeah. It's amazing, you know. It's amazing how God works and how this is all coming together. There's so much more, man. I mean, we can get into the God topic, and it's just, I'm like you at this point. There's no doubt in my mind that there is a higher power, you know, and the way he's brought people together at the right times, and all of these like little people that we don't have, you know, all the power in the world, but nonetheless, it's the perfect person, perfect time for a positive resolution to happen. And I truly see that every day in my life.
Yeah. Now, we will say this. We'll put a cherry on top with this note. So if there's anything that will come up, I have everything documented. I have all of our discovery. I have 10 years worth of documentation. There's nothing that anybody could do to kill me or delete our stuff. There's nothing to be done. Okay. But if they try to maneuver and to try to say, well, we can't do this because no, the truth will come out. We have the truth. It's going to come out. Anybody tries to subvert it or they try to counter it, I have documentation to stop them from doing that. So, word to the wise, don't try to stop us from pursuing the truth. We will take this to the highest. There is no federal judge. Gloria Navarro, go contact Gloria Navarro and ask her what happened when she attempted to suppress the truth. We have federal agent whistleblowers that will come forward to validate everything that I just described. Don't you dare do anything but find the evidence and take it to where it needs to go, to absolute accountability. So we may have to get together again to review some of the documentation if I skipped anything, but this thing is shored up. There's no turning back now. Thank God we have President Trump in office and his administration pursuing the truth.
All these files are going to be linked below, guys. You're going to see them, you know, as you've seen them through this podcast documentary piece. We'll have them all available for download below. And I don't know, this is an incredible time to be alive, let me tell you. You know, hopefully all this work that you've done, all the work that we've done really comes to fruition with these next few months.
Sure. I honor you. I thank you. I look forward to working with you as we pursue this thing.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And for the viewers out there, thank you very much for joining us for this Blood Money episode. Definitely check out AmericaHappens.com for our highlights, for our highlighted episodes. And I will see you all on the next episode of Blood Money. Take care.
Everything I've got, pushing for that first place.
little time. Too many love aside, and it's so much fun. Too Too many lawsuits, too little time, too many laws aside, and it's so much fun. Too many lawsuits, too little time, too many laws aside, and it's so much fun. Too many lawsuits on the taxpayer's dime, on the taxpayer's dime.